Okay, let's do these drummer tracks now in Logic. It's one of the big new features that was brought in with Pro X or Pro 10, these drummer tracks. So let's do a tutorial on that. It looks complicated, strange regions with these funny shapes on, very cryptic looking editor and everything, but I promise you it's simple. It really is. I'll show you how it all works. And for this tutorial I'll just work only with stereo kits on the drummer tracks. You can have multiple out kits, but for this tutorial I'll only work with stereo kits, and then at the end I'll add a short part 2 video showing you how to set up multiple out kits. So, drummer tracks, let's get into it. These drummer tracks, they've got two functions really. Drummer tracks, they either function as a creative tool, but they'll also function as a compositional aid. Okay, so I'm going to begin the tutorial by showing you this, let's call it a party piece. Okay, the drummer tracks, they've got this big party piece that they do when they're working as a compositional aid, and that is the drummer tracks will create for you automatically and instantly a complete drum track from start to finish across the entire length of your song, ready for you to play along with and record with. It really is fantastic. So we'll look at that first and then we'll get into the detail. Alright, so I need to delete this drummer track, we need to start from scratch. Okay, we're going to record a song, and the drummer track is going to provide us with a complete drum track to record and build our song with, right? But for the drummer track to do that, it needs to know the structure of the song. Now, we're either recording one of our own songs or we're recording a cover, but in either case we know the structure of the song in terms of its, you know, which bars go where and how many bars there are for each section. So we need to build the structure of our song first, so the drummer track has something to follow. Okay, so to do that we need this global track area here. Okay, we open it with this icon like that. The global track area, here it is, and there's all these different global tracks. And the one we're interested in is the arrangement marker track here. The arrangement marker track. Okay, now there's a little plus there, and we create our first arrangement marker. Boom. Okay, there it is. It's 8 bars long, and it's, by default it's titled intro, and there's a drop down list. We can change that if we want. These arrangement markers, when you put them in, they're always 8 bars long by default, because most songs are built out of chunks of 8 bars, you know. The structure of most songs is built like that. Once you've got an arrangement marker in, you can make it as short or as long as you like by dragging it. Okay, so you know, if your verse is 16 bars long, you drag it to be 16 bars or whatever, or you can have two chunks of 8 bars, whatever. You can do it whatever way you like. Okay, but they're all 8 bars by default, these arrangement markers. Okay, so we put our first one in and it says intro by default. I can change that. If the song goes straight in with the verse and singing and there's no intro at all, I change it to verse, whatever I like. Okay, so let me zoom out. There's our first marker saying, whoops, intro. So we've got 8 bars of intro. Next marker, 8 bars of verse. Then I'm going to do 8 bars of chorus, 8 bars of verse, 8 bars of chorus, and then 8 bars of, what should we have, bridge. Then back to the chorus, and then 8 bars of outro. A really short song, very short, structural. 8 bars of each section: intro, verse, chorus, then a bridge, back to the chorus and outro to finish. Okay, but obviously your song would have, you know, different structure and would be longer in real life. But this is just to show you for the demo. So there's the arrangement markers. Okay, now if the bridge here was the solo, you could. And you want to call it solo, you just double click and type solo if you like. It's up to you, but that, you know, there's the structure. And if you want, you can go a further step and you can shift and left click and bring in the different verse sections if you want, and colour those. Like I could colour the verse sections green, then shift and left click, and I could bring in my choruses and colour those blue. Then I can make my outro purple and my intro orangey coloured or whatever, and leave the bridge black if I want. You can colour these sections, it makes them kind of easier to see when you're working. Okay, but there's the structure of my song. Alright, let's just see a little bit that way. Okay, there's the structure of the song, and now all we do is create a drummer track. Watch this. Drummer. Create. And Lord have mercy, look at that. Okay, the default drummer, Kyle, is installed. Well, I assume that's who gets installed. I haven't got all the drummers downloaded yet, but he's the first drummer in rock, and he always seems to get installed from scratch. Okay, but there you are. There's your drum track from scratch, right across the length of the song. Each section is named following the arrangement markers, intro, verse, chorus, etc. And you'll find that the playing in these sections actually matches the type of section of the song. You know, the verse is a verse drumming, and then it ups, you know, it changes for the chorus, and it switches to ride cymbals and things for the chorus, and then back to the hi-hat for the verse, etc. The intro's got no snare and it just toms and a kick, etc. The outro is a lot of heavy cymbal work, etc., etc. Yeah, these drumming parts really do follow the structure of the song. And to show you that, I'll quickly put down an acoustic guitar, just to show you that all the drumming works to go and play a song with. Right. And what I'll do first though is I'll change the drummer to this Aiden. You can change the drum and it just changes all the patterns to update for that drummer. Now we've got a different drummer playing. Okay, I'm going to just drop the tempo to 110 and I'll just play a bit of guitar along with this. A typical acoustic song type, you know, typical song structure. I'll play along with the drumming. You'll hear that it fits to record a song to. Let me just make sure the mic isn't too loud. Don't want to overload the mic. Right, here we go. I'll show you now. You can clearly hear that the drumming is perfect to play along to. It's just like having a real drummer. Here we go. There you go. Turn the mic back up. You see what I mean? The drumming works. It just works to play along to. It's just like having a real drummer there to play along with you. Yeah, I'll just whack a channel strip preset on here now. The acoustic guitar. There we go. And there's your little song going. You know. know, each section is correct for that section of the song. The verse is like a verse playing with the, if you look over here on the editor, look, the kick, the snare and the hats are illuminated. It's a kick, snare and hat pattern. At this loudness and simplicity here, look. There'll be a little fill at the end of that and it'll go into the chorus, and then the chorus, look, it switches to the cymbals, the kick and snare pattern changes and a shaker comes in. So we do a little fill out of the verse into the chorus. Yeah, completely different pattern, then back to the verse. Then into the chorus again, and then it comes out of the chorus with a little fill into the bridge, which will be different again, the bridge section. A different pattern, yeah, kick, snare and hi-hat with a shaker, but a different pattern on the kick and snare. Now it's got that boom, da, 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 da pattern. And then it comes out of that into the chorus, back to the chorus pattern with the cymbal work. And then finally into the outro, which will have lots of cymbal work on it. There'll be a fill out of the chorus into the final outro. And he switches back to the toms and changes the kick and snare pattern and really goes for it at the end. So you really do get a drum track that is dynamic. It starts with an intro, you know, which is played as a drummer would play an intro, switches up a gear to the verse, switches up another gear to the chorus, backs down to the verse again. You know, it really works like that. It's very clever, and you can choose any drummer you want. Now your guitar's down, I can change the drummer. I could change it to any drummer I like. I'll switch to this drummer here, Nicky. There we go, change drummer, and it just updates the drummer and all the patterns change, but they still follow the structure of the song. So we've got a different drummer now. Okay. Now we've got Nicky. Okay, now the one thing about this Nicky drummer, look, she's got a lot of swing on her playing here. Look at the swing editor, or whatever you want to call it here, this pot labelled swing. It's up at 50%. With all the patterns highlighted, I can turn the swing down because the original drummer I played to didn't have swing. So I'll take the swing off, and now there's no swing across the whole of her playing. There, see, now she's got a different way of playing the intro. She's playing with the hi-hat and the kick. Etc. The point is, all we've done is we've changed the drummer and the drumming still fits. Okay, so you can change the drummer. This is before you even get into editing the kit and changing the kit sound, mixing the kit, etc. You can change the drummer, and the other thing that's interesting is if you highlight all the patterns for the drum track, you can further use this XY axis ball here to change the drumming a bit more. You've got more possibilities. You can change the entire drummer to a different drummer. You can get into editing the kit. That's the actual sound of the drums. But for the playing, once you've changed the drummer, you can also then take the further step of highlighting all the patterns on the track, all the regions on the track. Then you can use this simple, complex, loud, soft XY axis ball here to further manipulate and change the whole track. So I've got Nicky drumming now, but I can say I want Nicky playing loud and simple, and she'll play the whole drum track loud and simple. Or complicated and loud, and there'll be more kicks and snares in the pattern now. Yeah, or you could say I want her playing simple and softer. So there'll be less kicks and snares in the pattern and everything will be played softer. Or you can say I want her to play complex, much more kicks and snares in the beats, but still soft. Or you can say I want her to play louder but more complex, which means more kicks and snares are in the patterns, etc. So you can further alter the whole drum track in terms of its dynamics. You can make the whole track louder or softer, simpler or complex. And remember, simple, complex really only means how many kick and snare notes are in the patterns. This simple, complex axis hardly affects the other drums at all. It doesn't really affect the toms, the cymbals, or the hi-hat. Okay, so you got that further editing ability. It's very, very clever indeed. Alright, so like that's your big party piece, and obviously you can go in and edit the individual patterns once you understand what's going on a bit better. Okay, alrighty, so there we are. That's the big party piece, a complete drum track ready to go. It's fantastic. Let's move on and look at the detail now. Okay, so let's look at these drummer tracks in more detail and see how they work. Got a completely new project now, and there are no arrangement markers. Okay, so when you don't have any arrangement markers and you create a drummer track, the same thing always happens. The drummer track installs, then it puts two 8-bar long regions on the track. It always does this by default, and the first 8-bar region is like a verse beat, and the second 8-bar region is like a chorus beat. It's busier. Okay, that's what you get by default. And if you wanted to at this point, you could copy these two across the length of your song to get a simple repeating verse, chorus type drum arrangement to play along to. Okay, that's what happens there. Okay, so drummer tracks, how do they work? Well, look, it's not about the track. Okay, this is the thing. It's not about the track at all. It's all about these special regions. Okay, the track itself, the drummer track itself is almost irrelevant. Really, we should be talking about drummer regions, not drummer tracks. Okay, let me show you what I mean. I'll turn off the editor and I'm going to create a regular software instrument track next to the drummer track. Okay, it's a software instrument track, and I'm going to put a drum kit on it. Okay, now here's the drummer track. On it is a drum kit designer, and on the instrument track is a drum kit designer. You see, so drummer tracks, they just have a normal software instrument on, the drum kit designer, like any other instrument track. So it's not about the instrument on the track, it's about these regions, right? Because only on drummer tracks do we get these special drummer regions. On instrument tracks we get normal MIDI regions. Okay, so it's all about these special drummer regions, and what's going on here is that inside these drummer regions there are MIDI drum patterns, but you just can't see the notes. The notes are hidden, but there are MIDI notes in here, obviously triggering, you know, the drum kit designer. The drum kit designer is what by default is on a drummer track, and it's a regular software instrument that requires MIDI notes to trigger it. So these drummer regions have got hidden MIDI patterns inside them, but you just can't see the notes. Okay, but if you alt and drag one of these drummer regions onto a regular instrument track, it gets converted to MIDI notes, and now we can see the MIDI notes that are hiding inside this drummer region. Okay, this is exactly the same as this, but on this one the notes are revealed, on this one the notes are hidden, but they're identical, and they're both triggering the same instrument on each track, so they'll be the same. This is the drummer track, and this is the instrument track, exactly the same. Alright, so that's what it is about. It's all about these special drummer regions, okay, which work in combination with this special drummer editor. Okay, let's have a look at it, zoom in. Okay, once we zoom in on a drummer region, we can see it's got a lower and an upper layer. Now we've got all these different drummer genres, okay, and inside each genre there are different drummers, which is, each one's a different name. Well, now all these drummers are, each drummer is just a collection of MIDI drum patterns. That's all they are. Okay, every drummer is just a collection of hidden MIDI drum patterns hiding inside a default 8-bar long loop. Okay, and the editor down here, okay, you choose a drummer and you're therefore loading that drummer's collection of patterns, and then this part of the editor here tells the region which of those hidden drum pattern MIDI layers should play back, and this part of the editor tells the region when it plays back the selected layers, should it play them back loud or soft, or more complex or more simple. That's all it is. Okay, so each drummer is a collection of patterns all layered on top of each other, hiding inside this 8-bar default length loop, and you use the facilities here to tell the region which layers to play back. That's all it is. Okay, let me show you. Okay, let's turn all the drums off. This part is where you activate the drum pattern layers that you want to play back. With them all off, the region is empty. No MIDI patterns are playing back from inside it. Okay, now we have the kick and the snare. We can activate them like that. Okay, and then every drummer is the same. Every drummer has 8 kick and snare pattern layers to choose from. Okay, and the last 2 is a half time and a double time layer. Okay, every drummer is the same like that. 8 kick and snare pattern layers. The 7th is half time, the 8th is a double time one. Okay, so you choose the kick and snare layer, and that's its display along the bottom here on the region. Then over the top of the selected kick and snare MIDI pattern layer, you can put a hi-hat pattern, a tom pattern, or a cymbal pattern, and that's the upper layer. And the hi-hat, the tom, or the cymbal is the timekeeping drum. That's the drum that's going to play quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 8s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 8s with fills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that, or 16ths. Okay. So you choose the kick and snare layer, and then over the top you can have either the hi-hats, or the cymbals, or the toms, and any percussion. Okay, now every drummer has 8 kick and snare patterns to choose from, or layers, and then for the cymbals, hi-hats or toms, every drummer, obviously each drummer has a different set of patterns, but for the hi-hats, cymbals and toms, it's always the same principle. These are the timekeeping instruments, so the choice of patterns for the hi-hats, cymbals and toms is always like quarters, 8ths and 16ths. Okay, they're always quarters, 8ths and 16ths patterns, and it's the same for the percussion. There are quarter, 8th and 16 pattern choices as well. Okay, that's how it works, and you just choose the layers you want to play back. Okay, so for example, if I switch to R&B Curtis, I'm loading up a collection of patterns called Curtis. Okay, now I shall turn all this stuff down. We'll look at the extras in a minute. Let's listen to Curtis's kick and snare patterns. Now, one thing to note, the simple complex slider axis here, it really only affects the kick and the snare. It affects the toms a little, and it affects the percussion a little, but it doesn't really affect the cymbals and hi-hats at all. Okay, but it just affects the kick and snare. So we put the complex slider right over here, and then when we choose the kick and snare patterns, we'll hear every possible kick and snare note in that pattern, including ghost notes. So this is Curtis's kick and snare pattern 1, all the notes possible at 75% loudness. Pattern 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 7th is always a half-time pattern, and the 8th is always double time. Okay, so if I choose Curtis's kick and snare pattern number 1, and then further I can choose whether to have the kick and the snare play, or just the kick, or just the snare. And then I can layer whichever combination of that I want over, I can put over the top the toms, and it sounds like this, with tom pattern 1 layered over kick and snare pattern 1. Okay, now I'm going to take out the snare. So I'm just hearing the tom layer pattern number 1 with the kick and snare pattern 1, but with no snare. Okay, and then I'm going to drop this back and make it 50% complexed. And it's 75% loud. Okay, that combination of how I've set everything, the chosen kick and snare layer with the chosen upper layer on top, and whether it's soft, loud, complex or simple, the everything I've selected here, that constitutes an edit, which is what the presets are. Every drummer has presets, but these are just edit states. I've created an edit state. Kick and snare layer 1 with no snare, tom layer 1, that's all that's playing back at 75% loudness, 50% complexity. It's an edit state, and I can save this now as an edit preset, and I'll call it Simple Toms. There you go. Yeah, so that's what the presets are. They're just edit states, and that's how it works. If I go back to Rock, Kyle, I'm loading up his collection of patterns again now, and I've got some edits I did here. Look, for example, I've got straight rock. Okay, it's just the kick and snare layer pattern number 1 overlaid with the hi-hat pattern number 1, which for Kyle is a simple quarter beat hi-hat pattern, playing at just under 50% complexity, so very simple kick and snare beat at 75% loudness, and it's called straight rocks. It's a straight ahead rock beat, simple and straight. But here I've got an edit I did called King Kong, which is the 6th kick and snare pattern but with no snare, overlaid with the 3rd tom pattern for Kyle, which is an 8th tom pattern with lots of fills, very loud and at 75% complexity with a little bit of fills, and it sounds like King Kong. So that's how it works, right? You just choose the layers that are going to play back and whether they're loud, soft and complex or simple, which is mainly about the kick and snare. Okay, and that's an edit state or a preset, and every drummer is just a collection of patterns that you can choose which layers play back. That's it. Okay, now as I said, the kick and snare, every drummer has 8 possible layers or patterns to play back, and the 7th is a half time one and the 8th is always a double time one. Additionally, you have this follow thing for the kick and snare. Okay, now if you switch on follow, you can then choose a track, another track for the kick and snare pattern to follow, and it will attempt, the kick and snare will attempt to follow the dynamics of another track. So I've chosen audio track 1, which is a funk bass line, and now the kick and snare will attempt to follow the dynamics of that funk bass line like this. Okay, and then I just tell the pattern how loud I want it to be and how complex for the kick and snares. But no matter how complex or simple I have it, or loud or soft, it will try to follow the dynamics of the track I'm following, the audio funk bass. So I just move this until I get the kind of air like that. And then I can add on top of that hi-hats, toms, whatever I like. Okay, so that's the extra thing you get for each drummer. You get this follow for the kick and snare. Okay, so that's your kick and snare, and then all the drummers, they've all got different types of playing patterns obviously, but as I said before, hi-hat, toms or cymbals over the top, the principle is always that they're quarters, eighths or sixteenths, because that's the keeping time drum. So for Kyle, his hi-hat patterns, for example, he has a quarter beat pattern without the beat funk, a quarter beat pattern, then he has an eighth pattern, then he has an eighth pattern with different accenting, and then he has a 16th pattern. Okay, for his toms he has a quarter beat pattern, an eighth pattern, and an eighth pattern with more fills. Okay, now I did say that the simple complex slider pretty much only affects the kick and snare, but it does affect the toms as well a little bit. So for example, here's Kyle's quarter beat tom pattern. At fully complex we get a couple of extra notes and some flams in. Flam, 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 double. But at simple we lose the flams. Or we nearly lose them all. Okay, so this complex simple slider will affect the toms a bit, but really it only affects the complexity of the kick and snare beat. Okay, and then for example for Kyle's cymbal patterns, he's got the first pattern is a crash ride playing quarters. The last or fourth pattern is a crash ride playing eighths. And the two in between is a ride. One is a ride playing eighths and one's a bell ride on eighths. And a bell ride. So every drummer, although they're different patterns obviously, the principle for the hi-hats, toms and cymbals is the same. You've got quarters, eighths and 16th variations, which you put over the top of your kick and snares. Percussion, same thing. Quarters, eighths and 16ths variations. All right. That's it. Okay, so there's just these extras to look at. You've got fills, swing, and then inside details you've got hi-hat, ghost notes, ghosts, and feel. So let's look at those now. I'm going to keep with Kyle here. I'm going to choose the straight rock pattern. Right. Okay, let's put the fills right up. Let's look at the fills first. We'll ram them right up. When you put the fills up to maximum, and you've got an 8-bar region, you always get the same thing. You get a crash at the beginning of each 4-bar section or cycle, and then you get a fill every 2 bars. And it's a bigger fill at the end of the first 4 bars and at the end of the last 4 bars. So full fills, you get this: crash, fill, fill, crash, fill, and a fill. Okay, now the amount the fills play is also affected by the complex simple. Okay, so that's like full amount of fills. That's what you get. It's a fill every 2 bars and a crash at the beginning of every 4 bars. At 50% fills, you still get the 2 crashes, but you get a little fill at the end of every 4 bars. And at 25% fills, you get a fill at the end of the whole 8-bar section, and that's about it. No more crashes. So you can dial in the fills that you want. But the thing to note about these fills is there's so much variety. We just look at the last bar. Okay, look how much fill variety I get. I only have to move this a little bit and we get a completely different fill. And further to that, the simple complexity affects the fill as well. Okay, so there are endless fills. Okay, but one thing to note about these fills is that while using the fill amount here combined with the complex simple will give you endless variety of fills, you can never make the fills do the one that you want. If you can hear a fill in your head, you will not ever be able to get the drummer track to do it. You just get suggestions for fills, endless suggestions from very simple to very complex. Okay, but you can never get the fill you want. But further on I'll show you how to do a custom fill exactly how you want. Okay, there is a trick to do it. So you choose the fills amount, okay, and then you can lock it if you want, and I presume you can lock it because there's so much variety that once you get the fill amount you like, it only requires a tiny tweak on this fill control to change it. So once you get the one you want, you probably want to be able to lock it so it can't be changed by mistake. Okay, that's fills. Next, if you have swing, well, swing is swing, isn't it? Let's put the cycle range around the whole region. You've got the swing, which is either full swing or no swing or anything in between. That's your swing amount, and again, once you've set that, you can lock it, presumably because you might record some audio to go with that particular swing, and if the swing changes it will be out of sync with the audio. Okay, so you can lock that. Okay, that's your fills and swing. And then if you have in details hi-hats, ghost notes and fill. Right, hi-hats, well, it's on automatic by default. And when you hear these patterns playing back, these different drummer patterns, you listen to it, you think, oh, these are real drummers playing back MIDI patterns. You know, they recorded the MIDI patterns into Logic from something like a V-drum kit. Okay, it's real drummers playing an electronic kit. And if you leave this hi-hat on automatic, and this hi-hat control is for the choke, right, then you get all the hi-hat choke supplied automatically by the chosen hi-hat pattern. Okay, like here we are. Okay, good variety. The choke is subtly changing and it sounds really real. Okay, but if you want, you can override that and have completely shut choke for the hi-hats all the way through. This won't change the accents, but it will keep the choke completely shut. Or completely open choke. Or anything in between. Okay, that's that. Okay, then we've got these ghost notes. Scooby. That's my Scooby-Doo impression there. These ghost notes go from quiet to loud. Well, ghost notes is really to do with the kick and snare. You know, when a kick and snare pattern's playing, you get little bum bum ba ba dum ba dum, them little roll type things on the snare and little doubles on the kick inside the pattern. Well, that's what ghost notes are. Look, let's isolate bar 3. There's a couple of ghost notes at the end there. So it's doing a little drum on the snare. There. Now, the ghost notes can make those louder. So you can really hear that drum at the end, or make it very subtle. And often with the ghost notes, when you turn it completely down to quiet, they disappear. They don't always, like these two here have not disappeared, but the two here have. Okay, so that's your ghost notes, alright? And then you've got this feel thing. Okay, now this is a drummer thing if you don't understand how that works, when drummers play with push or pull. I'll put the playhead exactly at the beginning of bar 3, and you can see the kick and the hi-hat there are right on the beat. Now if a drummer starts playing with push, look, the more I push the drumming, the more ahead of the beat the drumming becomes. So when a drummer plays with push, he's playing ahead of the beat. He's playing ahead of all the other musicians, trying to push the beat along faster. But if a drummer plays with pull, then he or she is playing behind the beat, trying to pull the beat back, trying to make things, they're trying to play behind the other musicians to slow things down a bit. Okay, so you can put as much push or pull on as you like. Okay, and then you Alt left click to reset that. Okay, so that's all the extras. Fill, swing, and these 3 here, plus the follow for the kick and snare. Yeah, it's simple, right? Just layered MIDI patterns hidden inside this special drummer region, and the editor here at the bottom tells which layer to play back, which layers to play back, and whether loud, soft, simple or complex. And each drummer is just a collection of hidden MIDI drum patterns all layered on top of each other inside a default 8-bar loop. Simple as that. So that's how it works. So what I'll do is have a little tea break and I'll come back and we'll do some extras. Okay, let's look at extras for these drummer tracks now, starting with the kits themselves. Every single collection of patterns, which is a drummer, loads up a default drum kit designer kit, but you can have any drummer collection of patterns playing any kit you want. You just load up the drummer you want and then open the kit down here or here on the channel strip and just change the kit that's playing here. Okay, so that'll keep the same drummer but change the kit. So Kyle by default plays the SoCal kit or loads the SoCal kit, but I can change it so that the collection of patterns called Kyle plays any kit I like. It can play the Detroit Garage kit, or it can play the Sunset kit or anything I like. Okay, so any drummer collection of patterns can play any kit you like. And then of course we can edit the kits. Let's look at that. This is the editor. You can size it here using the percentage size, that's 100% like that, or you can drag it to be the size you want. Okay. Okay, editing is pretty easy. You just click on a drum, kick drum. There are 3 choices of kick for every drum kit. Choose the one you want, and then tune it, dampen it, or set the gain. And dampen means how much boom the drum has, how long it sustains. So dampening it for kicks is like putting a coat in the kick, you know what I mean? Okay, that's the kick. Choice of 3, tune it, dampen it, set the gain. Snare drum, same thing, choice of 3 snares per drum kit. choose the one you want, tune it, dampen it, set the gain. Then you've got your ride and hi-hat, tune, dampen, gain those, and then you have your toms are all in groups, so you click on one, it selects all of them. And you can edit them on the All tab, tuning them, dampening them and setting their gain as a collective group, or do them individually. Then you've got your cymbals as a pair, click on either. You can choose the All tab and you can set their tuning, dampening and gain as a pair together, or do them individually, left and right, and they are left and right as you look at them. So this is the left cymbal and this is the right. Okay, any of these edit wheels that you've moved or pots, you just alt left click to reset them like that. Okay, and that's how you edit. Click on the background to remove the editor. So you can edit your kit, get it how you want, then save it, and you can save it as and build up a collection of different edits, whatever you like. Okay. The editor itself down at the bottom has got this extra drop down bit where you can quickly access the volume control for the 5 percussion instruments. Okay, the different drummers share 5 different percussion instruments and you access their volume controls here really quick. And also here you've got the input mapping. Now this is only relevant if you're bringing MIDI notes in to trigger the drum kit designer. By default it's set to general MIDI GM, which means the kick is on MIDI note 36 C1 and the snare is on MIDI note 38 D1, etc. You can switch that to GM plus the mod wheel controlling the hi-hat choke or opening. And interestingly there's a V drum preset, and I say interestingly because, well, to be honest, all these drummer patterns to me sound like they're definitely real drummers have played in these MIDI patterns using electronic drum kit, and more than likely it was a V drum kit because it's arguably the best electronic drum kit you can get. So I would say all these MIDI drum patterns have been played into Logic by real drummers using V drums, but anyway, there is the V drum preset if you need it. Okay, and that's that. And then lastly you can choose to look at the editor not in this graphic view but in controls view, where you see all these sliders instead. It's interesting this because you can see that there are all the major drums have got an on-off for the leak, that's microphone leakage, the mic overheads, and a room A and room B on-off. Now currently these do nothing because for this tutorial we're working with stereo kits, okay, but I'm going to add on a second short part 2 video showing how to set up and implement multiple out kits on drummer tracks, and then these parameters will become relevant when we look at that. Okay, so there is that. Okay, so that's the kit itself. Okay, now other extras. Okay, well, here's one. You love using the drummer because it's so easy to build your drum tracks, and you want to have a song with 2 different drummers playing at the same time, layered on top of each other. It's a perfectly valid technique. There are lots of great tracks going back in time that had 2 drummers on it. Layering drummers is a very powerful technique. So you think to yourself, well, it's a no-brainer, right? I can only use the drummer because I'm rubbish at making custom beats using MIDI notes, so I love using the drummer. It's a no-brainer. I simply open the drummer, build my first drum track, that's drummer 1, and when I finish building that drum track I just go and open another drummer and build the second drum track. So you think, okay, I'll do that. So you build your first drum track, you go to open another drummer track, and oh no, it's grayed out. No! You can only have 1 drummer track per project. So how would you create 2 drum tracks, 2 layered drum tracks in the same song, but where you can only use drummer to build the track? Well, you do it like this. You build your first drum track using drummer, and when it's all finished you alt and drag a copy of the patterns down onto a normal instrument track and you put a drum kit on there. Now these MIDI converted patterns are identical to the drummer ones, so they'll play the same, and then you just set them up playing a different drum kit designer kit. That's your first drum track. There it is. Okay, then when that's done you just go back to the drummer track and you build your second track like that. There we go, look. Two layered drummers, it sounds fantastic. Then you just mix them between the two, and it's always a good idea to have two separate different kits rather than the same kit. Okay, there you go, that's how you have two drummers, where you've built the drum track for each one using drummer, but you can only have one drummer actual track. Okay, you do it like that. Okay, here's another one. You're working on your song. You've got the cycle range set because that's how you want it to cycle around the arrange area here. Now, MIDI regions, when you open them in the piano edit, they have this border around them which is the same colour as the region, which allows you to see the border, and it's got a thick bar across the top with the title and a little arrow. And if you click the little arrow, it solo cycles that MIDI region in place. Luckily, drummer tracks have the same thing. Very, very useful. There's the bar across the top with the bar numbers on it. 1, 2, there, look. And there's the title, and there's the little arrow. And you click this arrow, and it solo cycles that drummer region in place. Which means that while it's in solo cycle mode playing, the cycle range changes to fit around it exactly, and it gets soloed, so only it plays back. Hit stop, it becomes unsoloed, the cycle range goes back to where it is for the arrangement. Very useful, that. Very useful to quickly solo in place and cycle solo a drummer region to work on it in the middle of a project. Okay, so that's that. Okay, here's another one. Earlier when I was showing about how the controls worked, we looked at the fills control. Let me just zoom in on the last bar here, for example. Okay, when we use this fills control, let's put it to regular hi-hat pattern now. When we use this fills control, it just gives us endless different fills. Okay, endless. Just the slightest movement. The slightest movement of the fill control, it changes to a different fill. And further to that, moving the complex cymbal slider changes the fill again. So we get this incredible variety of fills that to choose from. But the thing about the fills in the drummer tracks is that we can never make the fill that we want. All we will get is endless suggestions for fills. And they're very good, but you can't say to the fill, using the fills control and everything else, you can't say, I want this particular drum fill exactly, because it has to be like that for this bit of the song. You can't do that with the fills. So how would you build a custom fill in any part of the drummer track? Okay, it doesn't have to be the end of a section, right? Anywhere. You might need a specific custom fill, and this will not do it. How do you do that on a drummer track? Okay, you turn off the automatic fills completely, and you get your beat going, whatever it is, across the whole, region. And then let's say we need a fill in this last bar. Well, what you do is you chop the bar like that. Now it's still the same pattern, or sometimes when you chop it, it modifies, in which case chop the last 2 bars or something, or chop a 2-bar chunk, right? Right, there you go. Now what you do is this: we need to make a custom fill in here. At the moment, it's a straight beat over this section. We just drag not a copy down, but we drag the whole chunk down onto an instrument track, and it gets converted to MIDI notes. But these notes are the same as the playing here before we dragged it down, right? So we drag it down, we get a MIDI note copy created for us. We push it back up onto the drummer track. Now these MIDI notes will trigger the drum kit designer instrument, of course they will, because it's just a normal instrument, right? So, but now we can see the notes. And now I can go in here and edit the fill that I want, which I'm going to do now, right? So I want give me a sec, hang on. There we go, that's what I want. I want a loud kick there. And I want a crash. Crash there. So I want that. I want bum bum ba but little dum bash. Whatever fill you want, you use the MIDI notes to build that fill now, but based off the original beat. Okay. There's the fill I want. That's how you do it. That's how you do a custom fill, because MIDI patterns, you know, you convert any chunk of the drummer region to MIDI and then dump it back onto the drummer track. It plays exactly the same, but you can see the notes and move them around to get the fill that you want. Okay, so you can do that. I'm going to show you another thing now, a little bit more advanced. We know, there's the fill I've just made, right? Now we know that the cymbals in a drummer track they can be dampened, which makes a kind of a drummer doing a choke on the cymbal. So what if I want this crash in this custom fill to have a choke on it? Well, I do it like this. Bring in my track automation, drum kit, crash. Now this is the left crash parameters, this is the right crash parameters, so I know it's the left crash. So I choose crash dampen, which is the left crash. Here is crash right dampen, right? Crash dampen. Now just to make sure that's exactly the right parameter that I've chosen, the right controller, I put in a node and push it up and make sure it dampens the crash. Yes, it is. And it's that doing it, and I must make sure that the crash is not being dampened here at all. Okay, right. Oh, it's got dampening, turn that off. Set the gain the same. Right, here we go. So, turn the dampen control down and it should turn, the dampening should come off now. Okay, so we know that's the correct controller. Now we could leave the controller over the top of the region like that, you know, as track automation, and then after we've done that node to choke the cymbal, we set the controller back down to 0 to make sure that any crashes further along the track are not dampened, and then we just put in a bit before like that, so anything leading up to it doesn't get dampened. Here is the dampening effect only on that crash, except we need to move this across a bit like that. Okay, now you can do it like that and leave the track automation here on the track, but the trouble is then, if you then go on to make more parts to your drummer track and you start moving things around, if you move, because there's some track automation here, if you move a region up here, you get this whole bloody thing about, do you want to move the automation? It drives you insane. Okay? It drives you nuts. So what you do is, because I want to delete this region, it's saying, do you want to delete the automation? There's no automation over this region, but it will ask you. Okay, so and then it leaves these nodes behind. It's a nightmare, Logic's track automation. It's the worst part of Logic. And it was the only thing in this new version that was never brought up to date. Okay, now, how do we stop this nonsense going on? Well, it's really... and another node gets created. It's easy, and another node there created. It's easy to stop this palaver going on. What we do is this. We know this is the correct controller, so get rid of all the nodes except for one. We only need one. There it is. Okay, and then what you do is you just make sure that node for that dampening the crash is selected or is visible, and highlight the region. Then you go mix, convert automation, convert visible track automation, which is the node dampening the cymbal. Convert visible track automation to MIDI draw, and the region must be highlighted underneath it like this. And what it will do is convert visible track automation to MIDI draw. It will dump this node into the region. Done. Okay, now there's one last thing to do. We must look, there's still active crash dampening control data on the track. Highlight that again, select that again, and there you see Logic puts in these nodes either side of the region. They've got to be got rid of, and there's a node at the beginning to get rid of. Okay, now there's no more track automation. Turn off the track automation. Now that means that now any other regions, you know, across our whole track now, we can happily build our drummer tracker. When we move things around, we don't get asked, do you want to move the automation? Because now the automation is hidden. Well, not hidden, it's dumped inside this region. It's actually in the MIDI region. Here, look. There it is, inside the MIDI region, along with the notes. Okay, fantastic. So what we do is now that track automation is off, this region, if I highlight it and do Command Y, I can cycle round the available controllers in that region. That's off. There's the controller for the dampening. There's the velocity for the notes, and that's off. Okay, now down here in the piano edit, do the same thing. Command Y. There's the node for the controller data that's dampening that crash. So now I build my thing in here. Okay, I just make sure that this node is covered like that. Okay, there's no other crashes here, so it doesn't matter if this crash is dampening goes across here. But after the crash has happened, of course, we want to make sure it turns off, so set it down to 0, so that any crashes further along the track are not dampened. Now that this 85% crash dampening is inside the region, okay, let's hear it. Lovely, but a little bit too much dampening. Let's take it down to 80%. Perfect. That's how you do it. That's how you do a dampened crash in a custom fill. Now the beauty is now that the control data is inside the region. I never have to worry about it ever again. It's in the region with the fill, which means if I copy the fill, the copy will have the dampening of the crash in it as well, look. As will the original. Because it's all the time, it's inside the region, you see. Nice and safe. It can't be corrupted or messed around with. So we solve the problem of, you know, when we move things on the drummer track, we get challenged about the track automation, and the dampening of the crash, the control data doing that is nice and safe inside the region with the actual custom fill. Okay, that's how you do that. Alright, that's another one. Okay, let's look at some other stuff. Lastly, because I just don't want to go on and on and on, there's quite a few things. I said at the beginning of the tutorial that drummer tracks, they're a compositional aid and they're also a creative tool. Well, here's one. I mean, it's pretty simple. You might not have thought of it. I like to build drum tracks. On a normal MIDI track, I'm good at putting in the notes and making my own drum tracks, but bloody hell, it's boring. It takes so long. I mean, I put a, you know, if I'm building a drum beat, I put in, I build a little MIDI region like that, pardon me, like that, and then I've got to pencil in the notes like that. Oops, not with you, just you. Or whatever beat I want, yeah? And then put the hi-hats over the top, you know, etc. Yeah, I like doing it because I get great control. I can get the patterns exactly that I want. Okay, but it's bloody boring. So one thing you can do is you can use the drummer tracks to help you build your MIDI drum beats quickly, but keep your drum track as a MIDI drum track. You just use the drummer track as like a help tool. You just make a little 1 bar or 2 bar loop, however long you want your beat to be, and then use this to get the beat together that you want, right? Okay, and then when you've got the beat together, just drag a copy down onto the normal MIDI track, instrument track, and there's, you see, it's done it for you. It's put your basic beat together, and then you can edit this. Yeah, just edit it, you know. Yeah, if you want the kick drum to be here instead, you just change it. Whatever you like, okay? Yeah, you can do anything you like. Change the notes around, whatever you like. It's just a quick way of getting a beat together, which you can then just tweak. And then you copy that and build your beat like that on the normal instrument track. Yeah. Okay. So it can work as a tool to help you quickly get beats together. Okay. Anything else? I'm sure there's something. Oh yeah, there is. Okay. Now here's one for you. We've already shown that individual drummers are just collections of patterns, and they have a default drum kit designer instrument that always loads with them, but we can make them play any drum kit designer kit we want by just changing it here. But it goes deeper than that. Remember that drummers are just a collection of patterns. The instrument they're playing is actually irrelevant. It's all about the drummer track always puts these drummer regions on, right? So we can actually make drummer patterns or collections of patterns play any instrument we want. So here's Kyle, for example, and I can make Kyle play. If I just go to the channel strip here, and I can load up the ultra beat, and Kyle will play the ultra beat. Yeah, any drummer can play any drum machine you want, including third-party software ones. Just load it up on the drummer track. Yeah. Now, as soon as you change the drummer, if you think, okay, I want R&B style beats, and you load up a different drummer, yes, it will reset the kit, the instrument on that drummer track back to a drum kit designer, but then you just change it back to the ultra beat. Okay, that's how that works. Now, I'll just show you another thing. If you're using the drummer editor with an ultra beat or any other software drum box or other software drums, it may be that obviously some of these instruments here won't trigger the right instruments on the drum kit, because these instruments here, including the percussion ones, are all set up to trigger the correct sounds for the drum kit designer kits. Okay, now generally it follows general MIDI, of course, but you might think, well, I'm building this kit, this beat using rows, okay, and you've got it like that with a hi-hat, kick and snare playing. Okay, but you think, oh, hang on a minute, this is triggering the rim shot. Now, is that because of the velocity? Well, try putting the velocity up. And it may be just the velocity, hang on. Yeah, it is. So that's the velocity doing that. But with other drums, like, say, you might choose the shaker. Now the shaker clearly is triggering a different instrument. If you look on the actual ultra beat here, you can see which instrument is being triggered by the shaker. It's this one up here, the simple bass. If I turn off all the other drums, yeah, just the percussion instruments playing now, just the shaker, it's triggering this simple bass instrument up here because it lights up blue. Okay, so if I want this percussion shaker pattern selector to trigger a shaker, I first see which drum row on the ultra beat it's triggering, which is this one. Then I find the capacitor or whatever, and I drag it up and drop it onto that row, and that is now the capacitor on that note. So this little shaker pattern thing here will now play the cabassa. Yeah. So now I can have kick, snare, hats and cabassa. Yeah. So that's how you do that. Okay, so yeah, you know, these drummers can play any instrument you want. I could change this if I want for the XS24 sampler, and you know, load up one of the old drum kits for that. Look, drums, percussion, electronic drum kits. How about this? You got all that. It'll play any. You know, these drum patterns will play any bloody drum machine you want. Look, there's another one. Look, old school funk. Let's try that. Oh no, let's try this one. Hip hop remix. Yeah, so any software drums can be played by these drummer patterns. If I wanted to, I can even get it to play orchestral. If I wanted to, look, orchestral drums. Okay, not that you would do that, but that's how you do it anyway. Okay. Okay, and finally, one last thing. If you do start messing around changing the type of instrument that's on a drummer track, where you do it here on the instrument slot, do it raw, yeah, then you might find that the colour of the track changes, and you will only notice that when you go to pencil in the region. Oh, now it's green. Still drummer regions, but they're green. Okay. Okay. Now to do that, you bring up the shortcut menu for the track headers area here, and look, track header components, show track color bars. It's always good to have that on anyway when you're using Logic, because you can see the colors. Okay. Now here's a thing. By default, drummer tracks are this mustardy colour. Okay, we've changed it to an XS sampler now, which makes it green. But if I let me reset that. Just highlight the track here, right, and bring up the colour box. Alt C, and which yellow is it? It's not that one. It's that one, right? So let's make the track that colour too. There, that should be right. And now we're back to the default colour for the drummer track. Yes, we are. Okay, now, but you could be working with a, you know, I would just create a drummer track from scratch. Look, you could be working with a drummer track. Let me make one from scratch, drummer. And you don't want to mess around. You don't want to put a strange instrument on it or what. Okay. You want to just stick with the default drum kit designer kits, everything normal. But if you want, you can still change the colour, so that when you pencil in your drummer regions, by default they change. They're a different colour. Look, all you do is just Alt C, change the colour of the drummer track. I can make it any colour I like. I can make it blue. Then every drummer region I pencil in is blue. Yeah, or I can make the drummer track purple. Then every drummer region is purple. You know, you can have the drummer regions could be any colour you like. Yeah. Oh, obviously after they've been pasted in at the, you know, at the default colour, which was what, that one. Yes, you could highlight all the regions and change their colour like that, but it still, every time you pencil one in, it would be the mustard colour. So you can just make the default colour anything you like for tracks, is the point I'm saying, while still keeping them drummer tracks. And that's the last little tip I'm going to show you there. Okay, show. I don't think there's anything else. Drummer tracks. Cool, huh? So that's that. I hope it's been useful. I will come back and add a very short part 2 video to go with this tutorial, showing how to set up multiple out drum kits on these drummer tracks, and that'll be that. Okay, so there you go, that's your tutorial. Any questions? Don't hesitate to ask.